Hello everyone and welcome to a new video dedicated to our beloved Snoopy and the world of Peanuts. In this Peanuts strip published on January 15, 1951, we see a confrontation between Charlie Brown and Patty, one that does not revolve around a game or a childish activity, but rather a theme that belongs as much to the world of children as to that of adults: good manners. Even in the very first months of his creation, Charles Schulz shows his ability to transform everyday and seemingly trivial situations into moments capable of revealing the nature of his characters. The plot is simple, yet behind the short words and exchanges between the two children lies a sharp observation about language, authority, and childhood logic, which overturns social rules and makes them both comical and unexpected. In this strip, there is no action, no group movement or collective play, but only a tight dialogue that highlights Patty's character and that of Charlie Brown, two different personalities that, even at this early stage, already show the first distinctive traits destined to grow stronger over time. It is significant to notice how Schulz manages to give depth to an exchange of seemingly elementary lines. Patty appears more assertive, almost like a little teacher of rules, while Charlie Brown takes on a more passive and reflective role, accepting to be guided or contradicted. Already here, we can sense the dynamics that over the years would become typical of the Peanuts world, where the everyday turns into a mirror of the human condition, and the voices of children sound strikingly close to those of adults. In the first vignette, we see Charlie Brown sitting in an armchair, holding a book in his hands. His posture is relaxed, yet at the same time authoritative, because without hesitation, he gives Patty an order, asking her to bring him a glass of water. This is an important detail, as it shows us how Charlie Brown, in the early strips, was still very far from the insecure and fragile character he would later become. Here he almost appears like a little head of the household, speaking to another child with the natural confidence of someone who expects to be obeyed. This reminds us that in the early years of the Peanuts, the roles were not yet fixed, and Schulz experimented a lot with the personalities of his protagonists, trying out different nuances before settling on the characters we know today. Another curious detail is the book Charlie Brown is holding, a symbol of his reflective nature, but in this case also a sign of a comfortable and lazy position, typical of someone who wants to delegate a task to others. It is interesting to notice how this image combines two contrasting elements: the seriousness of the reader and the lightness of a child who takes advantage of a friend's presence, creating a scene that may seem unusual to us today, but that belongs to the experimental and surprising phase of the early Peanuts. In the second vignette, Patty enters the scene, and she doesn't passively accept the request. Instead, she immediately turns the situation around by imposing a rule of good manners. It is significant that the very first word she speaks is a direct reminder of politeness, because in these early Peanuts strips, Patty often represents the voice of discipline and authority. This is not just a small detail in the writing, but a deliberate narrative choice. Schulz entrusts her with the role of reminding Charlie Brown that there are rules to be followed. It is no coincidence that he chose Patty and not another character. To put him in difficulty, her presence becomes the counterbalance to a Charlie Brown who appears more hesitant and insecure. This shows us how already in 1951 the author was beginning to sketch out distinctive traits that would develop over the years. Patty determined, firm, and almost authoritarian, while Charlie Brown remains bewildered, confused, and unable to reply with the same readiness. In the third vignette, we witness a typically childish yet profoundly comic moment. Charlie Brown responds with a naive "please what?" as if he doesn't immediately grasp Patty's intention. This small exchange encapsulates one of the most brilliant elements of the Peanuts: the ability to show how children reinterpret adult rules with simple logic, often surprising and unexpectedly clever. Patty, for her part, repeats the full phrase, almost like a schoolteacher, once again demonstrating her role as a guide, or more precisely, as a corrector of behavior and manners. This dynamic, which appears light and playful, actually conceals a deeper reflection. In the Peanuts, Adults are never truly needed to give lessons. It is the children themselves who teach each other how to navigate the world. The vignette also reveals a stylistic trait characteristic of Schulz, capable of making a seemingly static scene lively and brilliant purely through the rhythm of dialogue, subtle expressions, and implied silences that frame the moment. In the fourth vignette, the final line arrives, completely overturning the scene. Charlie Brown protests strongly, reminding everyone that he had been the one to make the request first. This ending highlights his character as a child who never wants to give up the last word, as if the need to be right were almost a vital principle for him. At the same time, the situation underscores a typical Peanuts dynamic. Social rules are taken very seriously, yet at the same moment, they are turned upside down in a logical game, creating surprise and humor. A particularly interesting detail is Patty's posture as she watches him in silence, firm and decisive, without needing to add anything. This silence becomes eloquent because, while Charlie Brown raises his voice to assert his point, she gains authority simply by remaining still. This creates a subtle but powerful contrast, Patty's commanding calm against his childish irritation. It's a play of roles that anticipates the kind of relationships Charlie Brown will have over the years with many other female figures in the Peanuts universe, from Lucy with her intellectual aggressiveness to Sally with her affectionate intrusiveness. In this small scene from 1951, in short, one can already glimpse a thread that will run through the entire history of the strip. This strip, despite its simplicity, is a small example of how Charles Schulz knew how to draw humor from everyday life. The theme of good manners, central here, is no accident. In the 1950s, politeness and courtesy were values often emphasized in American culture, yet the children in the strip reinterpret them in their own way, with an irony that remains relevant to this day. Another element to notice is that this exchange takes place entirely in direct dialogue, with no inner thoughts or external commentary, demonstrating how Schulz was already capable of constructing a purely theatrical gag, based solely on back-and-forth dialogue.
If you enjoyed yourselves, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and activate the little bell to stay updated, and see you next, friends.